right, here we've got this small little book with this really decorative cover. This is part of the Hopley Manuals series. It's a Lexicon Abbreviaturarum from Adriano Capelli, and it's called the Dizionario di Abbreviature latine et italiane. This is the publisher's monogram, Enrico Hopley, and it's published in Milan. And just look at this beautiful ornate decorations here all around the letters. And so this is a dictionary of Latin and Italian abbreviations. And let's take a look at the spine. We can just see the same information repeated here with these blue and red letters. And then it looks like the cost of the book originally down there at the base of the spine. And the texture on the of this material for the covers is so interesting. I'm not entirely sure what this is made out of. I don't know enough about bookbinding to be able to say certainly. And the spine's starting to separate a little bit from the front cover, so I'm going to be really careful here. So these are end papers for this, the Manuali Hopley. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I believe it's the publisher Hopley's manuals series, so it's like a series of manuals, and this is a dictionary in that series. There's a name of previous owner, and then this is the title page, so we can see that information repeated again. So it's the Lexicon of Abbreviations, and then it says which in stone codices and charters, I believe, occurred, and it's the Dictionary of Abbreviations of Latin and Italian. And we can see the author is Adriano Capelli, and the publisher is Enrico Hopley. And it was published in Milan in 1899. Then we have a preface, it looks like. So apologies in advance for any poor pronunciations or mispronunciations of anything in Italian. I don't know Italian. But this book is really interesting nonetheless, and you'll see why in a moment here. So here it starts to talk about some common medieval abbreviations, sort of giving an introduction. And this is showing general signs that were used, and then signs that marked some sort of truncation. And then we can see how this works over here. So here's an example where we see SPD, which means salutem plurimam dicit in Latin. And then mundio, dicit. We see all these others here. So this top one was commonly used in the introduction of letters, and sort of saying, says greatest salutations, or most salutations. And then these are examples of sort of truncations that are occurring, or abbreviations where it's just using the first letter of each word there. And then here it's indicating a certain thing by repeating a character. So here it's indicating, I think, the plural of the word for brother, which is fratres. And then these are just truncations where they cut off a portion of the word. So we can see Augustus turns into Aug. And but then over here we have abbreviations which are from contractions. So they just remove sort of letters in between certain significant letters, and then just show the significant ones. So we can see abbreviations there of that style. And so this gives an example of how you could misread something. So this could either mean mother or teacher. So context probably mattered a lot in instances where you would need to translate these. Here's some more common abbreviations, and these would be suffixes generally. And here we can see how they would work. So this one that looks like a little 9 would be like an us sound at the end. So you can see prius and suis and nobis and filius. And some of these can be kind of complicated and pretty difficult to remember since there's so many different ways of writing the same sort of thing. So here's an example of how hard it could be to read. So that would be, I think, the word for apothecary. And then this is Romanorum, which would be of the Romans. And that little thing that looks like a Z at the end is the abbreviation for Rum, or R-U-M. Here's just a bunch of other examples here. This one's for Mercury, and you can see a little a superscript letter there next to the M, which indicates the R. And so this is all still just kind of introductory material, which is before the actual dictionary. So you can see all of these ones. I think most of the ones it's showing here are related to some sort of superscript character, so that's where you write it small and above the line. And then here's a section for Roman and Arabic numerals. Numeration, Roman and Arabic. And you can see how some of these abbreviations would work for the Arabic numerals. Triangulus, that's a strange one. And then these are some fold-out examples of sort of full text. So we'll take a look at some of these here. So here's the first one, and it just gives you an example of how difficult it would be to sort of translate this. First of all, just difficult for the layperson to even make out which letters are what. And then the fact that they're abbreviated as well makes it extra hard. And then the manner of abbreviation changes from place to place and period to period. Here's another example. So everywhere there's a character written sort of above the line or above another character, or a line over another character, that's indicating some sort of abbreviation or truncation, or some sort of a letter that's not fully written out, or something like that. And here's another example. You can see the horizontal lines written over things normally indicate some sort of abbreviation. Here's another small example, and here's the beginning of the actual dictionary of symbols. So this is for all of the abbreviations that start with a letter A, like this, and these are all the different ways of writing that letter A. So we can see here, there's some for autumn, Ambrosius, and so much of this would just depend on the context, I suppose, since a lot of these characters are just sort of the same character but have a different meaning. You can see all of these here. And these are all in order, I believe, not in alphabetical order of their meaning, but in sort of a meaningful order of just how the symbol looks. So here we have some more complicated ones that start with A. And we'll go through and just sort of look at all of the interesting things in here. So here's different abbreviations for words related to anima or animus, which is the word for soul or spirit. You can see all of those here. And then amicus right there. And there's just so much information in here, and obviously it's way too much to memorize, so this would mostly be useful for just as a reference, and there's been a few instances where I've been able to use it, and it was helpful in figuring something out. Oh, and here's a bunch of abbreviations for words related to water, so aqua, aquam, and then here's some that are related to, looks like there's one for astronomy or astronomia, down over here on the left, and then astrologus as well for astrology. And we're getting almost all the way through the A section, and I'm just taking a little extra time here on the A's, but we'll sort of jump through the rest of them. So here's the section for B, and we can see again it shows all the different forms that the letter B takes there. And then here's the section for C. And some of these I wouldn't even interpret as a C if I were to just see it out of context. Some look like L's, some look like other things. So if you were looking at an old manuscript that was written with these Latin abbreviations, it would be pretty intimidating unless you had some sort of reference like this, or were already very knowledgeable about that subject. And this is a sort of section injected here right after C for a common abbreviation type that looks like this little 9. We kind of saw it earlier. But it has to do with sort of C-based sounds like con and cum and things like that. So it has its own dedicated section just because it's so it occurs so often in those kind of manuscripts and those texts. And it even occurs in texts that aren't even in Latin, and some of these abbreviations transcend language and sort of go into different languages adopt them in their writing. Here's just some interesting ones that sort of are larger than the rest. Alright, so we're working through the section for D's here. And now we're in E. You can see all of the different forms of E there. Let's just jump ahead to get to something a little more interesting. So here's the O's. And this would be probably really useful or interesting to a graphic designer or somebody who is into fonts and things like that, since it's got so many different creative variations of certain letters. So we're in the section for R now, and then S. We're getting closer to the end. We're at T. And then here are all the different X's. And then these last sections are pretty short, so X, Y, and Z, since those letters are less common. And then these are some conventional signs that aren't necessarily alphabetic like all those other ones. They're just signs that were commonly used. So here's some signs for the cross. Some of these signs look like division signs or equal signs too. So these are all signs that just mean it is, which is est in Latin. And they look like percent signs or division signs, sort of. So est, est, est. And then we get down into et, and you'll recognize the ampersand there, which we still use today in all sorts of languages. And then also these little ones that look like a 7. So et is the Latin word for and. So all of these characters mean the conjunction and. And it kind of makes me think about how today sometimes when people are writing in shorthand, they'll just kind of scribble a little symbol when they're saying and. And here all those sort of scribbles are cataloged. So here's all the section for, or etc. Different sections for that. And then here they have a few different symbols, I think, for different currency measurements, and then paragraph. And then over here we kind of get into some interesting things. Down towards the bottom we've got Draconis and Iovis, so that's Jove. So these are starting to become like astrological symbols. We've got the moon, Lunae, and Mars, Martis, Mercury. We've got Saturn. We've got the sun, which is Solus, and then Venus here. And then we've got some other just symbols. We've got multiple symbols for the asterisk, which we still use. And then over on the right, we've got another section for abbreviations regarding medicine. And so this would be really interesting to anybody into alchemy, just the history of medicine or the history of chemistry. So you've got different symbols for the element air here. You've got a symbol standing for an alembic. You've got a symbol for water here, multiple symbols for water, and then different types of types of water, like aqua fortis or aqua regis. Then we've got the water of life here, aqua vitae. And then silver and quicksilver here. So this section is really fun to look through. We've got fire, symbols for fire, and then ignis balni, ignis fortis, and then Jupiter down here as well. And then lapis, which is stone. And then pumice stone or calc stone. And then sublimated mercury here. And then we've got different salts. So salt alkali, volatile salt, and then Saturn, Scorpio, a symbol to dissolve, and then the spirit of Mercury here, the spirit of Tartar. Then we've got a symbol for Terra, which is earth. And all these different wines. And then the sort of last sections are for different numerals. So this is Roman numeration. And so you can see the C there, the common one, which is 100, like a C note, like a $100 bill. But there's all sorts of obscure ones that people don't really know so much about, all these different forms of Roman numerals. And there's all sorts of strange combinations of them as well. And in sort of an uppercase and a lowercase style. And this is Arabic numeration, so you can start to see some things that are a little more familiar to English speakers, these 2s and 3s, but the 4 is pretty odd. It's kind of this little loop design most of the time here. And then we've got 5. And 5 kind of looks more like 4, and then also pretty similar to the Jupiter symbol, I believe. And then we've got 6s. And then 7, which is sort of like a normal 7, but on its side. More 7s. Then 8s, and here's another example of where context would probably be important, because I think the symbol for 4 looks pretty similar to one of these symbols for 8 here. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but it might be hard to tell in certain scenarios. And then 9 and 10 and 0. And then this is a pretty interesting section too. So this has to do with different monograms of famous historical characters. So these are the monograms here, and they're all numbered, so you can look up who they belong to and what names they represent. But they're just all such beautiful designs here. So this first one was for this Imperator of Germany from 1292, I believe. You can see all of these different designs. Again, I think this would be really interesting to anybody who's into graphic design. And I think this one is for one of the popes, Pope Leo, which you can tell just because it says Leo right there. Let's take a look and see if we can verify that. Sorry, I got out of focus there for a second. Okay, so that was number 26, Leone the Third Papa. So I think that is Pope Leo the Third. All right. I just love looking at these. I just think they're so pretty and interesting. And then we just have a final section of sort of capital letter abbreviations. I think that's the last section in the book that actually deals with abbreviations. So we're pretty close to the end here. Yep, so there's Z, and then we have some corrections, and then an index here. And then finally there's just a catalog of some of the other manuals in this series. And that's the end. Alright, so that's the Dictionary of Latin and Italian Abbreviations by Adriano Capelli, part of the Hoepli Manual series, and published in 1899, I think it was. But thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, feel free to give us a like and a comment, and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching. Okay, bye.